Welcome back, guys. Today I'm going to bring you another comparison video. What I'm going to have here today is the Browning model 1919A4 and the German MG-34 general purpose or universal machine gun. Since both of these weapons actually did face each other on several fronts during World War II, we're going to put these into a comparison and a shootout test to see exactly which one really had the advantage in battlefield conditions as far as maintenance, barrel change, caliber, and velocities, and rate of fire and suppression. So let's take a closer look at these two adversaries and see what we come up with.
Okay, here's a comparison of the ammunition that is used, the calibers for those two machine guns. The Browning 1919A4, which uses the 30-06 caliber round, located there on your right. The German MG-34, as well as the 42 and various other rifles, use the common Mauser 8mm or 7.92 by 57. As you can see, the 30-06 is just slightly longer, a little bit more powder to it, had a little bit better hitting capacity and more range. Okay, let's first take a look at the Browning model 1919A4. It's mounted here on the model 1917A1 tripod. This allowed it to be a lot more versatile in overhead firing ranges and also indirect firing. Could also be used on the smaller, lighter compatible M2 Browning tripod that allowed for greater mobility, flexibility, and concealability in the field. As you can see, the model 1919A4 was fed from a 250 round cloth belt. Contrary to what a lot of people think, the metal links and the disintegrating links for the 30-06 caliber during World War II didn't come about until 1945 and used later on after that. Purposefully, the metallic links were made specifically for aircraft use and were basically disposable. But the cloth belts were used all the way up through Korea. This one here is chambered in 30-06. Rate of fire is around 400 to 500 RPM, or rounds per minute. Also, it was quite hefty at 31 pounds. Changing the barrel was pretty much a very hard task. Basically, the weapon had to be broke down from the tripod system and moved to a more rearward secure area for that to happen. The barrel had to be withdrawn from the back end of the receiver after the pistol grip assembly was removed and the internals drawn backwards. Since the Browning 1919A4 fired from the closed bolt position, it then also had to be re-head spaced before firing could resume. Okay, here we have the famous German World War II MG-34. Really the first practical universal machine gun to come out, and saw extensive action throughout World War II. Even though the MG-42 was already in production, the 34 was kept in production primarily because it was used in rearward areas as well as vehicles, tanks, armored cars, personnel carriers, things like that. What you see here is the original Lafayette Model 34 tripod. The 34 tripod basically is what made the MG-34 so deadly. It was unique, very complicated design of its time. If you can see over here, has a provision also for a optic scope, and also even has fire tables for conversions for overhead firing, indirect. A very complicated piece of machinery in its own, but it did make the 34 very, very deadly. Of course, the 34 could be used in the light machine gun mode by the bipod, There were also several other type mounts available. Now, on the Model 34, what really made it unique and stand out against all others in the field was its ability to change barrels relatively quickly. There's a little button here, right here on the side, if you can see that. This latch here, when it lifted up, it pressed that in, you simply rotated that over, it moved on an axis pin from the barrel jacket to the receiver, and after that the barrel could just simply be withdrawn, changed out, put back in, closed back in position, and ready for firing again. So it was a really quick barrel change, unlike the 1919 A4. On the downside, the Model 34 was very, very complicated, made very close tolerances, was prone to dust and debris damage and blockage and jams. It really was not suited for either the Eastern Front or for North Africa. So primarily a lot of the success from the MG-34 came about in its campaigns in Italy and Western European theater. The tripod is quite heavy. You see the little front pads there. When it collapsed and folded up, those pads would actually rest against the soldier's back to prevent fatigue and banging him up, bruising him up while he's carrying it. And the MG-34, as you can see, is chambered in 8mm Mauser or 7.92 by 57mm. On the downside, one negative thing for the MG-34 is it had a small little drum canister on the side that would clip to the side of the feed tray, and I had basically held 50 rounds just kind of wound up inside there on the continuous link belt. However, on the tripod it wouldn't fit. You couldn't fit it on there. So while mounted on the tripod, you basically had to feed it from the belt opened in a unsecured can. There was no place to secure a can on the side of the tripod, unlike the Browning 1919 A4, as well as its previous models, the water-cooled 1917 and 1917 A1. But then again, on the negative side for the Browning 1919 A4, while in the light machine gun mode in a A6 configuration by adding a bipod and a little small metal stock that would fit onto the back of the pistol grip assembly right here. It didn't have any kind of drum fitting for ammunition being wound up inside of a little canister like the MG-34. So they both had their faults. Now, a plus side for the smaller tripod, the Model M2 tripod, these were mostly used by advancing troops, and its low silhouette enabled troops to have good concealment cover if they were caught in open ground or small hedgerow area, where unlike the Model 34, it would only go down so far. Now it would allow you to take these legs here, fold them back up over onto those rests, and then the tripod would basically be resting on the back side right there on these feet. These are additional feet, claw feet, that fit on the ground when the legs are folded up. But then again, on the downside, you have all this structure right here that protrudes up and sticks the gun up. It could be folded down and the gun could be fired from it, but it was highly inaccurate. How complicated this mechanism is, I'm going to leave it up to you guys to look up a lot of information on the tripod. It basically had a search mechanism, a search and fire, which basically by moving this here, you could dial it in, and as you're firing it from the remote trigger assembly over here, it would actually, the gun would move up and down various amounts of degree and disperse the bullets instead of them hitting in one particular spot. And here's the trigger mechanism right here by squeezing this in here like that. This here is just an oil bottle. You also had a provision, a little canister, a little container here for a spare bolt that could be changed relatively quick. And once again, the 1919A4 was pretty complicated in changing the bolt and barrel combinations, and it just really wasn't made for superior range like the MG-34 or the MG-42. Okay, the bolt and barrel change on the model 1919A4, as far as most of the Brownings, they all disassembled from the rear of the receiver. Basically what you had to do is have a tool. Here is your driving recoil spring. Basically you had to retract the bolt, push that spring inward, lock it at 90 degrees, and then slowly pull it forward. You had to remove the top cover up, and then take a small screwdriver or tool and move the locking piece that holds the back plate, and then slide the back plate off. Then what you would do is retract the bolt, move the bolt handle, and retrieve all of the internals outward from within inside of the receiver box. We're not going to demonstrate that here because we'd have to go back and re-head space the weapon again. And then once again, you just go to reassemble it after you get it all back in. Remove the bolt back to the rearward position to where that small little driving spring exposed itself, using a tool, a screwdriver, flat blade. Push it in, turn it 90 degrees, then the bolt should again go forward since it fired from the closed bolt position. And then you're ready to resume firing. By contrast, the bolt and barrel assemblies on the MG-34 could be replaced a lot easier, and especially under battlefield or rough field conditions. All you would simply do is raise the top cover. Small button here in the bottom, you would press in and rotate the buttstock assembly. It can then be withdrawn and removed with the recoil spring. The buttstock assembly could be also removed from the buffer assembly. And in fact, the buttstock assembly doesn't even need to be on while the MG-34 is being fired from a tripod position. Once that's removed, you simply just grab hold of the charging handle, pull the bolt to the rear, slide it out, and remove. New barrel and bolt can be reinstalled very quickly. The recoil spring and the buffer with the buttstock assembly, and you're back in business. As I mentioned before, the barrel on the MG-34 can be changed out quite rapidly. You would first have to have the bolt retracted in the rearward position. The pressing of this button right here, if it wasn't on the tripod, if it was in the bipod mode. But, however, with the tripod, they have incorporated a small little catch. You push in and just simply rotate over and withdraw the barrel. Very quick barrel change. Almost as quick as the MG-42, just not quite.